Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction and welcome everyone. The mystery of Shambhala. Well, Shambhala has certainly captured the imagination of the world in general at the moment. Well, the world of those on the spiritual and New Age paths, particularly. There's even a book publisher using that name, and many organizations and spiritual groups and individuals make use of the name with varying ideas as to its whereabouts and its purpose. James Hilton wrote a book, Lost Horizons, which talks of a similar place called Shangri-La, which he places in the Himalayas and has come to represent an ideal utopia where peace reigns supreme. And there's even a chain of hotels called Shangri-La. And the book later became a film. And this is a still from the film. Many of you may have seen it. Now, in the 60s, there was a TV series called The Champions. Agents Craig Sterling, Sharon McCready, and Richard Barrett worked for a United Nations law enforcement organization called Nemesis, based in Geneva. Barrett is a codebreaker, Sterling a pilot, and McCready a recently widowed scientist and doctor. During their first mission as a team, their plane crashes in the Himalayas. They're rescued by an advanced civilization living secretly in the mountains of Tibet, who saved their lives, granting them enhanced abilities, including extrasensory powers to communicate with one another over distances, a sort of telepathy, and to foresee events, which is precognition, enhanced versions of the ordinary five senses and intellectual and physical abilities, reaching the fullest extent of human capabilities. So this is another reference to a Shambhala type place in popular culture, which shows how it has become sort of entrenched in the psyche of society in general. It's also been the subject of much imagination in art and music. There's even a Shambhala music festival in the UK, and a computer game where you can build your own Shangri-La. That's certainly captured the imagination in the world in so many ways. The Theosophist Nicholas Roerich, who was an artist and a Theosophical student, painted several pictures of his vision of Shambhala. This is one. He also claims to have seen a UFO in the area where Shambhala might be situated. The report at the time goes as follows. Some may wish to connect the mythical land to other realms and other worlds. In Kongala, one of the possible locations of Shambhala, many UFO sightings have been reported. In the 1920s, Russian explorer and theosophist Nicholas Roerich, in his search for Shambhala, allegedly spotted a UFO while camped near the Altai Mountains between Mongolia and Tibet. UFOs hadn't even been heard of back then, but he described it as something big and shiny, reflecting sun like a huge oval, moving at great speed. Crossing our camp, this thing changed in its direction from south to southwest, and we saw how it disappeared in the intense blue sky. We even had time to take out our field glasses and saw quite distinctly the oval form with the shiny surface, one side of which was brilliant from the sun. And that was at a time when UFOs weren't in the popular culture, in the media. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched to connect Shambhala to UFOs. Some people have even gone so far as to make maps of Shambhala, though where they got their information from is uncertain. But some claim some kind of psychic insight. And this one's by a lady called Lola Lonley. A nice alliterative name there, Lola Lonley. It'd be too much to go into detail about what it means, but it's It's meant to be a map of the various areas of Shambhala. Here's another one, a more, no, this is different. The next slide. In all this uncertainty, what does Theosophy say about this mysterious location? Prepare to have your minds stretched. H.P. Blavatsky states in The Secret Doctrine, in the same manner and on the plan of the zodiac, in the upper ocean or the heavens, a certain realm on earth, an island sea, was consecrated and called the abyss of learning. 12 centres on it in the shape of 12 small islands, representing the zodiacal signs, 2 of which remained for ages the mystery signs, and were the abodes of 12 hierophants and masters of wisdom. This sea of knowledge or learning remained for ages there, where now stretches the Shammel or Gobi Desert. It existed until the last great glacial period, when a local cataclysm, which swept the waters south and west, and so formed the present great desolate desert, left only a certain oasis, with a lake on one island in the midst of it, as a relic of the zodiacal ring on Earth. So that's very interesting. That's from the SD2 502 to 503. That's the original edition. So HPB locates Shambhala in the Gobi Desert rather than the Himalayas, or so it seems. And this is where the mysteries come in. But as we can see, the Gobi is very close to the Himalayas, so there is some leeway there. The Gobi stretches through parts of China and into Mongolia. So is all this a blind, just to mislead the curious? We don't know. SD2-220 says, the island, according to belief, exists to the present hour, now as an oasis, surrounded by the dreadful wildernesses of the great desert, the Gobi. And she says elsewhere in the SD, what is claimed is simply the fact that the wisdom imparted by the divine ones, born through the Kriya Shakti powers of the third race, before its fall and separation into sexes, to the adepts of the early fourth race, has remained in all its pristine purity in a certain brotherhood. The said school or fraternity being closely connected with a certain island of an inland sea, believed in by both Hindus and Buddhists, but called mythical by geographers and Orientalists. The less one talks of it, the wiser he will be. That's from SD2, 636 to 637. So I'm obviously not very wise because I'm talking about it, but someone has to, I suppose. So it mentions Kriya Shakti, which is a power used by initiates to bring something into being by the creative power of thought. In Theosophy, there are said to be 7 Manvantaras. So everyone will probably know this, each lasting quite a long number, 43200000000, quite a lot of solar years, and further divided into root races and sub-races. The 4th root race mentioned above were the Atlanteans, the 3rd were the Lemurians. So each Manvantara goes through 7 of these root races. And this wisdom was passed down from adept to adept and has kept its purity throughout countless ages. It is said in the Secret Doctrine again, Adyavasya, the land of libations, is the mystery name of that region, which extends from the Kailash mountains nearly to the Shamo desert, from within which the Kalki Avatar is expected. SD2 416. Of the Kalki Avatar, the Theosophical Glossary says he is the white horse avatar, which will be the last Manvantaric incarnation of Vishnu, according to the Brahmins, of Maitreya Buddha, agreeably to northern Buddhists, of Sosiosh, the last hero and saviour of the Zoroastrians, as claimed by the Parsis, and of the faithful and true on the white horse in Revelations. In his future epiphany or 10th avatar, the heavens will open and Vishnu will appear seated on a milk-white steed with a drawn sword blazing like a comet for the final destruction of the wicked, the renovation of creation, and the restoration of purity. This will take place at the end of the Kali Yuga, 427,000 years hence. The latter end of every yuga is called the destruction of the world, as then the earth changes each time its outward form, submerging one set of continents and upheaving another set. This, of course, happened in Hyperborea, Lemuria, and Atlantis. So many spiritual and New Age groups say that the time of Maitreya is due, but Hindu and Theosophical teaching says otherwise. This is not to say there won't be many other incarnations in between, but the Kalki Avatar is the big one at the end of the Kali Yuga. Maybe it's where the Christians get their idea of the second coming of Christ. So let's look at the yugas. The first is the Satya Yuga, also called Krita Yuga, the Golden Age, which lasts for 1,728,000 years. The second, the Treta Yuga, the Silver Age, 1,296,000 years. The third, the Dvapara Yuga, Bronze Age, 864,000 years. And the fourth, the Kali Yuga, the Iron Age, only 432,000 years. So we're very lucky. It's only very short. Total 4,320,000 years, called the Mahayuga. So we descend from the Golden Age through the Silver Age and the Bronze into where we are now, the Iron Age, the Black Age, the Age of Darkness. And it's the middle point, the balance point, the turning point. And then we ascend through the Bronze Age, to the Silver, back to the Golden Age. So I'm sure we all can't wait to get back to the Golden Age, but it's going to be some time off. So obviously, though, this land is bound to endure no matter what. But just when you think you have it located, H.P. Blavatsky writes, every 7th year, these teachers are believed to assemble in Shambhala, the happy land. According to the general belief, it is situated in the northwest of Tibet. Some place it within the unexplored central regions, inaccessible even to the fearless nomadic tribes. Others hem it in between the range of Gandhisri Mountains and the northern edge of the Gobi Desert, south and north, and the more populated regions of Kunduz and Kashmir, of the Gyar Pelling, the British India, and China, west and east, which affords to the curious mind a pretty large latitude to locate it in. Others still place it between Namo Nur and the Kuen Mountains. But one and all firmly believe in Shambhala and speak of it as a fertile, fairy-like land, once an island, now an oasis of incomparable beauty, the place of meeting of the inheritors of the esoteric wisdom of the godlike inhabitants of the legendary island. And that's from an editorial appendix by H.P. Blavatsky in Theosophical Articles 3.333, all the threes. And the Blavatsky Theosophical Articles were printed by the Theosophy Company, attached to the United Lodge. Now, Tibetan Buddhism contains many more detailed references to Shambhala, mainly in the Kalachakura, or time circle, or wheel of time system. This is one of the mandalas produced in the Kalachakura system. That in itself would take a lecture, or maybe a couple of lectures. So I won't go into it here. It's just an example of this, of the mandalas. And this speaks of Shambhala as a kingdom, which has a capital city named Kalapa, where reside a succession of kings of Shambhala, also known as Kalki kings or emperors, who each reign for 1 century, each new occult century beginning with what in our calendar is the 75th year, i.e. 1875, 1975, 2075. Interestingly, in 1775, the 6th Panchen Lama wrote a detailed guidebook of the way to Shambhala, titled Shambhala Lamyig. This is another a more modern mandala to do with the Kalachakura system. Kalachakura teachings say that the current degeneration in the world will continue and worsen until 2424 in our calendar, when the then Kalki king, not the Kalki Avatar, the Kalki king, who will be named Rudra, one of the names of Shiva in Hinduism, and in some way an incarnation of the Panchen Lama, will appear to humans all over the world and defeat the barbarians, whilst establishing a worldwide golden age. This is the last Kalki king. Again, we talk about the golden age not being millions of years off, but there are wheels within wheels. And this will be the last Kalki king, according to the teaching, prophesied. In some respects, this echoes a prophecy asserted by HPB in an article called Tibetan Teachings, where she said that up to the time when Panchen Rinpoche, the great jewel of wisdom, condescends to be reborn in the land of the Palings, Westerners, and appearing as the spiritual conqueror, destroys the errors and ignorance of the age, it will be of little use to try to uproot the misconceptions of the Paling Pa or Europeans. Their sons will listen to no one. And that was the Panchen Lama from 1938 to 1989. The current one is said to have been kidnapped by the Chinese, and no one knows what happened to him. But in esoteric Tibetan Buddhism, the Panchen Lama is higher than the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama's duties are more temporal and political, whereas the Panchen Lama is the one who's said to be in touch with the higher beings, the masters. In popular culture, it's the other way around. But again, that's to mislead people who may desecrate the teachings and the ideas. So it says, sons of Europe will listen to no one. Well, it is true that most don't, but fortunately, some do. I don't really know the significance of the year 2424. The numbers add up to 12, which could be connected to the 12 signs of the zodiac mentioned earlier. And 1 and 2 is 3, which suggests the triad that exists in most religions, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva in Hinduism, and Father, Son, and Holy Ghost in the Christian religion. This also refers, I believe, to the end of a cycle and the beginning of another one. It is interesting to note that this quote mentions the start of a golden age. As I said, the golden age is not meant to commence for many, many years, millions of years. But within this time, there are many wheels within wheels, as we can see from many civilizations that had their golden ages and then gradually degenerated. Even we have our golden ages and dark ages in our lives, even in the day sometimes, as above, so below. You know, you can have a really brilliant day, it can be like a golden age. You can have a terrible day, it can be almost like the age of Kali. Some people have their whole lives that are really terrible and awful. They live in a constant age of Kali. For others, everything seems to go right for them and everything seems to be perfect. And they're having like a golden age, and there are in-betweens. But for most people, we have a mixture of them all to lesser or greater degrees. Again, like I said, it's just as above, so below. Because we're just microcosms of the macrocosm, of course. So much is naturally kept shrouded in mystery, but Theosophy, in contrast with the Kalachakura chronology, states that it is not in the Kali Yuga, our present terrifically materialistic age of darkness, the Black Age, that a new saviour of humanity can ever appear, SD 1470. And also that the occurrence, which some describe as the coming of Maitreya or Kalki, will thus not be until the close of this Kali Yuga, as said, which will correspond with the close of the sixth root race. It will not take the form which many might be inclined to expect, for this will be the one wisdom and will incarnate itself into the whole of humanity collectively, and not in a single individual. That's from Lamas and Druzes by H.P. Blavatsky. It is also said that a wondrous being lives there, known as the Silent Watcher. It is said, the secret doctrine states, he is the initiator, called the Great Sacrifice. For sitting at the threshold of light, he looks into it from within the circle of darkness, which he will not cross, nor will he quit his post till the last day of this life cycle. Why does the solitary watcher remain at his self-chosen post? Why does he sit by the fountain of primeval wisdom, of which he drinks no longer, as he has naught to learn, which he does not know? I neither on this earth, nor in its heaven. Because the lonely, sore-footed pilgrims on their way back to their home are never sure to the last moment of not losing their way in this limitless desert of illusion and matter called earth life. Because he would fain show the way to that region of freedom and light from which he is a voluntary exile himself, to every prisoner who has succeeded in liberating himself from the bonds of flesh and illusion. Because, in short, he has sacrificed himself for the sake of mankind, though but a few elect may profit by the great sacrifice. It is under the direct, silent guidance of this Maha great Guru that all the other less divine teachers and instructors of mankind became, from the first awakening of human consciousness, the guides of early humanity. It is through these sons of God that infant humanity got its first notions of all the arts and sciences, as well as of spiritual knowledge. And it is they who have laid the first foundation stone of those ancient civilizations that puzzle so surely and sorely our modern generation of students and scholars. It was a child of pure spirit, mentally unalloyed with any tincture of earthly element. Its physical frame alone was of time and of life, as it drew its intelligence direct from above. It was a living tree of divine wisdom, and therefore may be likened to the mundane tree of the Norse legend, which cannot wither and die until the last battle of life shall be fought, while its roots are gnawed at all the time by the dragon Nidhogg. For even so, the first and holy son of Kriya Shakti had his body gnawed by the tooth of time, but the roots of his inner being remained forever undecaying and strong, because they grew and expanded in heaven, not on earth. He was the first of the first, and he was the seed of all the others. There were other sons of Kriya Shakti, produced by a second spiritual effort, but the first one has remained to this day the seed of divine knowledge, the one and the supreme among the terrestrial sons of wisdom. Of this subject, we can say no more, except to add that in every age, even in our own, there have been great intellects who have understood the problem. Let's go back to that one now. But who or what is the great sacrifice? Adi Shankaracharya, the founder of the Advaita Vedanta school of Hinduism, was an extremely high initiate himself, and in a certain sense, the reincarnation of Gautama Buddha. He wrote a mysterious hymn called the Dakshinamurti Throta, which some theosophists believe is referring to the nature and the role of this being. He said, "It is strange to see the very old disciples sat around the teacher of ever youthful appearance, who sits beneath the banyan tree. The teacher always teaches in silence. Yet the disciples receive the answers to all the questions. Salutations to that Dakshinamurti, who is the meaning of the Pranava Om, who is the personification of unalloyed wisdom, who is crystal clear in his thought, and who is the epitome of peace. Salutations to that Dakshinamurti, who is the teacher of the entire world, who is the doctor to those afflicted by the disease of birth and death, and who is the treasure house of all knowledge. Shankaracharya said that this was the Adi Guru, meaning the first Guru, the first of all spiritual teachers, and he recognized him as an embodiment of Shiva. In one place where H.P. Blavatsky talks about Shambhala in SD 2502, she also makes mention of Rudra Shiva, the great yogi, the forefather of all the adepts. In esotericism, one of the greatest kings of the divine dynasties, called the earliest and the last. He is the patron of the third, the Lemurian, the fourth, the Atlantean, and the fifth, i.e., which is our root race. Move on through here. T. Subbarao, an early theosophist, stated that the masters teach that Amitabha Buddha, the Buddha of infinite light, himself dwelt at Shambhala and established the brotherhood there. Deductions could also be made from the secret doctrine that he is also associated with Avalokiteshvara or Padmapani of Tibetan Buddhism, or even the Vedic Vishvakarman, the one who sacrifices himself to himself for the salvation of all. H.P. Blavatsky also suggested a link with the mysterious biblical and Kabbalistic figure of Melchizedek, and all three are shown here. The first is Amitabha Buddha, the second is Vishvakarman, and then Melchizedek. Another interesting point mentioned is that this will be the one wisdom and will incarnate itself in the whole of humanity collectively, not in a single individual. Now, another great sage called Tsongkhapa, and Tsongkhapa reformed Buddhism before Tsongkhapa. There were the red caps who were mixed up with the old Bon religion and into all kinds of unseemly practices. And he came to reform it by founding the Gelugpa or Yellow Cap sect of Buddhism. And he initiated the edict that at the last 25 years of every century, someone would come to try to awaken humanity to spiritual truths. So the Theosophical Society, of course, was founded in 1875. Before that, it was said to be Mesmer, along with the Comte de Saint-Germain. And people will say, well, you know, what happened in 1975? But as hinted, it is not always a person, but a spiritual impulse, which could be seen at the end of the last century with the influx of spiritual teachings coming from the East and the West too. And going back to the Kalki kings of Shambhala, talking about the Kalki kings appearing at the last 25 years of every century. So there could be a link there. 1875, 1975, as said. So I think there must be some kind of link between the two things. So it may be asked why Shambhala cannot be seen in modern times, now that we have planes that can fly over the Gobi Desert and the Himalayas. Well, it is spiritual, I believe, in nature, yet existing here on this physical plane, although none can ever find it or go there, except the very few have earned the right and passed through the requisite initiations. So it is invisible to those who are not spiritually prepared to see it. In the as above, so below, the silent watcher also could be related to our own higher self that guides and protects us if we but accept that guidance and that friendship. I think it was W.Q. Judge who said, the higher self can be our truest friend if we would accept that friendship. It can also, of course, be our enemy if we fight against it. So it's our higher self that guides and protects us. We will to accept that friendship, but actually can be said to be the same being manifesting on a lower level. I think in some ways, Shambhala can be said to be a state of mind, a place of sanctuary, where all the holy ones dwell. This is a picture of again by Nicholas Roerich, which I always take to represent this silent watcher. I don't know whether that's what he meant in the painting. I'll have to go into it. Maybe he did. So I think in some ways Shambhala is a state of mind, a place of sanctuary where all the holy ones dwell. There's only one consciousness in the universe, so all the holy ones are not separate from us. So the silent watcher does dwell within us. Perhaps this state of mind is manifest as an actual place or somewhere, or is it everywhere? H.P. Blavatsky said, reduce everything to states of consciousness. Perhaps that is one of the greatest hints she gave to us and is the key to a really true understanding. Reduce everything to states of consciousness, everything. And she emphasizes in italics, everything. So that as something worth meditating upon. If Shambhala exists on a spiritual level, but also manifests in the world through Kriya Shakti, perhaps, maybe as a physical plane place, then it exists everywhere because something on a spiritual level is not limited to a certain place or time, which is beyond all of those designations. So it is also within us as a place of sanctuary, where we can retreat to discover our true identity, whilst we are in this world of passing illusions. The Diamond Sutra, a Buddhist sutra, says, thus shall ye think of this fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. I don't know if I wrote this down or not. Oh, that's a symbol of Shambhala, the symbol of Shambhala. The divine being in the center. I don't know if you can read that. This is so to finish with a bit of practical advice. Gottfried de Peruca, in his book, The Book of Golden Precepts, writes, commune in the silence with your inner God, that living inner chamber temple within you, wherein if you listen carefully, you can hear the whisperings of the divinity which fills that chamber full. There lie truth and wisdom and understanding and ineffable peace. Open the portals of your human selfhood to the rays from the divine sun within. Enter into this chamber in your heart of hearts. Become one with yourself, your divine self, the God within you. Be the God which you are in the core of your being.